In today's video, we're going to test out to see which of my cameras produce the highest quality videos outdoors. So my full frame camera, the Sony A7C that I'm shooting this video with, or the Panasonic GH5 with the larger sensor, will not protect them from the smartphones, the iPhone, the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro, or the GoPro, or the Sony ZV1 with the 1-inch sensor. Because outdoors, with lots of lights, all of these cameras are capable of producing good video quality. The big question is, which of these cameras produce the best image quality? Let's find out. Hey, welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom. In today's video, we're gonna be doing a test. We're gonna test these cameras outside to see which camera produces the best image quality. We're gonna do a couple of rounds where we're gonna zoom in closer and closer to see which camera is the best. Now, we did a test similar to this a couple of months ago where we tested it indoors. And indoors, it was a no match for the Sony A7C. But even the Sony ZV1 with the 1-inch sensor did produce very nice quality indoors. So the big question is, outdoors, just how good are these cameras? Now, my prediction is that the bigger the sensor, the better. You're gonna have more data to work with. And so my prediction is that the Sony A7C that I'm recording this video with will be the winner once again. But it's not certain. I'm also kind of curious to see how the GH5 holds up and the Sony ZV1. It's gonna be a fun test. So let's get into it. Okay, starting off with the GH5. So I had to shoot at f14 and the colors looked a bit faded, so I increased the color saturation. Now the GH5 is one of my favorite cameras of all time. It has a micro four thirds sensor and image stabilization is pretty much the highlight of this camera. But looking at this image, I think it looks pretty good. Now the second camera that I'm shooting is the Sony A7C, also f14. And here the image looks great, but I did increase the sharpness a bit and I did increase the saturation just a tiny smudge. Now, this is a full frame camera, meaning it takes in the most light, so I think this one will win hands down, but who knows? The third camera that I'm testing out is the ZV1, shooting at f8. I did decrease the exposure a little bit. Maybe it was the ND filter, I'm not sure. The ZV1 has a 1-inch sensor, so it should be able to produce a very good image out here. And as you can see, it's not bad at all. And then I shot with the iPhone 12 Pro, where I did increase the color saturation just a tiny bit, but I have to say the image quality looks very, very nice and natural. The dynamic range is just insanely well lit. Like, just look at the shadows and you'll see what I'm talking about. And then we shot with the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. The reason I have this smartphone is because it shoots at 8K resolution. And that's what I recorded this video with. Now, I did have to decrease color saturation quite a bit because, as you can see, it was just too much. I have to say though that because of the color saturation, it feels like it takes in a lot more details, like the branches and the flowers behind me. So that was pretty cool. But again, I had to decrease the color saturation here. And then finally, GoPro Hero 10, one of my favorite cameras of all time. Now, the problem here is that it's got a very wide lens. So at first I tried to shoot this in linear mode in 5.3K, but I felt it was a bit too wide, so I went with narrow instead, and then I increased the exposure just a little bit. And I have to say, just looking at this image already, I can already tell that the GoPro does some kind of upscaling, and it just doesn't look good. But we're gonna compare all of these cameras and see how the GoPro Hero 10 does. Okay, now it's time for round one, where I'm comparing the shots on all of these cameras at 100%. And looking at the image quality, I would have to say that they all look pretty good, except the GoPro Hero 10. Again, I think even though it's 5.3K, still think it upscales the image quite a bit. and makes it look a bit muddled, so it's not good. I think that the best image so far is the Sony A7C, where I can see more details in the shot, more in the shadows. Dynamic range is very good. I can say the same thing for the iPhone. The iPhone has really impressive dynamic range, probably the best overall dynamic range if you compare all of these shots. The Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro looks pretty good also. And the GH5 and the ZV1 are really not that bad. I really like the shots coming out of all of these cameras. But if we're gonna do this removal thing here, then I have to say goodbye to the GoPro Hero 10. It has to go, despite the 5.3K sensor. It looks very upscaled. Maybe if the camera was a bit closer to me, it would look a lot better. But looking at the image like this, it just doesn't look good. Okay, now it's time for round two. What I've done this time is I've zoomed in 200% on all the cameras and compared them side by side. So let's take a look. Okay, starting off, I would have to say that both the Xiaomi Mi 10T and the A7C look the best. They have most detail, and I'm very impressed with the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. I really am. The GH5 looks pretty good, but I would have to say that the A7C looks the best in my opinion. And this is where I have to say goodbye to the iPhone. Unfortunately, it's just filled with compression artifacts and it's just really sad to look at. Maybe if I filmed with Filmic Pro, the app, it would have done a lot better. And I have to say that the Sony ZV1 kind of disappointed me on this one. And it's only because, I mean, the image is pretty good, but there is just too much noise. Now, I'm not sure if this is because of the built-in ND filter that popped in there, but I don't like the image. So I'm gonna have to say goodbye to the iPhone and the ZV1, and let's move on to round three. This is 400% zoomed in. We're really pixel peeping right here, okay? So we have the GH5, the Sony A7C, and the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. So if we're gonna do this like a real contest, then I would say that the bronze goes to the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro. Like, you can see a lot of details, but you can also see that there is a lot of over sharpening going on here. It's really not that bad considering that this is 400% zoomed in, but I don't like the image that I'm looking at right here. But still, I have to say, I'm pretty impressed with the Xiaomi Mi 10T Pro and its 8K capabilities in bright daylight. All right, and now the silver goes to the GH5. I'm very pleased with the image. There is, however, some noise, which is a bit disappointing, but the Micro Four Thirds cameras have always been known for their poor low light performance. And this was a bright day outside in my garden, and it probably would have if I'd used a lens that took in more light. And the winner in this test goes to the Sony A7C. Best overall image, almost no noise at this level. And I see, and despite the fact that I've already increased the color saturation and sharpness a bit, I see that I still have more data to play around with. So if I wanted to tweak the image a bit, I still could. And I think that's very important for me as a content creator, to have a lot of information to play around with when I'm creating content. The GH5 is at the noise maximum and the Xiaomi is the sharpening going on. So definitely the Sony A7C. This is a very good camera. Okay. So it's conclusion time. So the full frame camera wins the test. Now there are some people who would say that this is a very unfair test because you're comparing apples to oranges, some would argue. I don't know which one would be the apple. I suppose the iPhone would be the apple. Now, there are, however, three things that I want to point out here. The first one being, we're really pixel peeping here. Like, we're zoomed in 400% on some of these shots, and I'm being awfully picky. If I watch these clips at 100% resolution, they all perform really well, except the GoPro. It's not really done for those types of shots. I'm kind of disappointed in the GoPro. But overall, all cameras perform really well in well-lit situations like outdoors on a sunny day. Now, the second thing I want to point out is that, yes, the bigger cameras win, but at the same time, they're kind of big and bulky. You can't put this in your pocket. Whereas the GoPro or the Sony ZV1, these are very tiny cameras. You can put them in your pocket. And the smartphones, These are cameras that you always have with you. And I'm not going to do that cliche saying, you know, the best camera is the one, you know which one I'm talking about. But there is something to it. Now, I think it's also very important, and I pointed out this in some videos, that all cameras have their advantages and disadvantages. So again, with the bigger cameras, yes, that has better low light performance. You can exchange the lenses and do all sorts of interesting things with these things. They have a purpose, but they're not very mobile, and they're definitely not pocket friendly, right? Now, cameras like this, the GoPro, like I've been bashing the GoPro in this video quite a bit, but the image stabilization on this thing is crazy. It's waterproof, it's pocket friendly. You can do great slow motion with this camera. And it's the tiniest camera of the test, so it definitely does have its advantages. Same thing with the Sony ZV1. Now, the Sony ZV1, this is a good compromise. It has good image quality and is portable, and it has amazing slow motion, but it's not good at stabilization, for example. So there is that. So all cameras really have a purpose and a place. And in the search for that perfect camera, I'm gonna have to look at these cameras for exactly what they are. Tools. That's all they are, just tools in creating content. Okay, that's all I had for today. Hope you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Take care.
You gotta focus on yourself, on your faith, on your dreams, on your mind, on your health, yeah. You gotta work, never tell, keep your head down, find what you love and excel, yeah. Push and pull and repel any hate, go create what you want, feel compelled, yeah. And once you finally get a taste of the race, you'll never look back once you felt